Hello, this is Brian. Today is Wednesday, November 24th, 2021, day before Thanksgiving, and I want to record a spotlight on shrubs video right here from Panorama Nature Preserve in Fullerton. So today's spotlight is on the very common coyote brush. This is Baccharis, pilularis, subspecies consanguinea. It is a small to quite large shrub in the sunflower family, evergreen leafed, typically evergreen leafed. Sunflower family being the Asteraceae. Coyote brush is a common staple of lower elevation coastal sage scrub, openings in chaparral, openings on the side of woodland, trail sides, and disturbed areas. Like a lot of plants in the Asteraceae, the plant loves to colonize disturbed sites. And it's very common in areas that have been recently disturbed. And the side of a trail is a disturbed site. So, I mentioned that it's generally an evergreen shrub. However, that's not always a cut and dry rule, and I will go into that a little more later. Coyote brush is characterized by very small leaves and green twigs. See here, the leaves are very small, roughly oval in shape, with the toothed edges. Try to see if I can get a good detail here. These leaves are kind of rough edged. They kind of have teeth, and they're kind of sometimes wavy along the edges and sometimes flat. And they have very noticeable teeth around the edges of the leaves. It's a very vigorous and sometimes quite fast-growing shrub that sometimes has been known to flower and go to seed its first year of life. I would know because I've had that happen to me, because I've grown this plant from seed before, and they can flower the first year of their lives. So again, let's see if I can get a yellow leaf, because I don't like picking live tissue off plants. You can see the shape, the general shape of the leaf. Now, this is not always a tried and true identification feature, because the leaves do exhibit some variability depending on what part of the stem they're growing on, what time of the year it is, because sometimes the leaves can be quite variable, and that's quite common with Asteraceae. As you can see here, so that was a leaf from lower down. The leaves on the lower portions of the branches and stems tend to be larger, as you can see here. The lower portion of the branches have the larger leaves. As you move up, higher up, the leaves get smaller. Quite a common characteristic of Asteraceae, the sunflower family. I mentioned that on other spotlight videos on sunflower family plants. And you see these leaves, a lot of times higher up on the stem, they become a little bit more narrow, not as prominently toothed, but often with a tooth or two on each side. And then some of the leaves on the very end of the branches might be entire edged. In other words, smooth edged. No teeth at all. So again, you have to look at multiple aspects of this plant to be able to tell if you're really looking at coyote brush. Now, coyote brushes are capable of quite large sizes. I've seen them even significantly larger than this. Some of the largest ones I've ever seen were at Torrey Pines State Reserve Extension Area in Del Mar. Have some huge coyote brush plants over there. So I was mentioning that the leaves are bright green, and so are the twigs. The uppermost twigs are quite bright green, as you see here, very bright green. So now generally this plant is an evergreen. In other words, the plant has leaves on it pretty much all year. But Under the most extreme of conditions, they might shed some leaves. I've never seen them go completely deciduous, but they do sometimes shed leaves, and they can use the green twigs to photosynthesize. So they do have that as a backup plan in case conditions get really bad for them. So again, green upper twigs, and then the branches become more of a grayish with some brownish in them. And then there might be some very slight furrowing on the lower stems, as you see here, on these lower trunks here. Sometimes you get some light furrowing, which is not very rare in sunflower family shrubs, to have very woody trunks. They're not quite as woody up top, but they're definitely woodier than a lot of other sunflower family shrubs and subshrubs, like golden bush, some of the golden bushes, and even other species of Baccharis. So, one characteristic of the genus Baccharis is the plants are generally dioecious, and what that means is male flowers and female flowers occur on separate plants. So, those plants, the ones that have the female flowers, if they're properly pollinated, will form the seeds. So right here, what we have is a male plant. These are the leftover flowers. These are the old dried flowers, old dried flower heads. Again, being a sunflower family plant, these things are flower heads, not individual flowers. So what happens is they get these whitish creamish flowers in fall, usually around September, into October, and then the male flowers will just crumble away like this, and they look like old miniature sunflower heads. Now these are the male flowers, and this is a male plant. This is the female plant. Now here's interesting. Here's a male plant right here growing right on top of a female plant. This time of year, November and December, the female plants are extremely easy to pick out because they're the ones with the cottony seeds, like little miniature dandelion seeds, as you see here. The female flower, this is what the female flower looks like. The female flowers look like that. They kind of look fuzzy. The flower, and I should say flower heads. Should be saying flower heads are fuzzy, and then they puff out into these seeds that are easily wind dispersed. So, and you see, they get attached to fur, people, they blow in the wind. It's kind of hard to see, but there are a gang of them just blowing in the wind right now. You see here, watch. Easily wind dispersed. This is how this plant spreads like wildfire. Coyote brush and other plants in the genus Baccharis love to colonize disturbed areas. And you can see here, you see a lot of coyote brushes. Here's a coyote brush. Here's a coyote brush. Another coyote brush. More coyote brushes. Coyote brush loves to spread like crazy. And it's a very easy plant to grow. Very easy plant to grow. Good for a xeriscape garden. You don't have to keep them wet all the time. Of course, if you keep them fairly well watered, they'll probably grow faster. But regardless, these plants are good for a very quick gardening scheme if you want to get your place greened up fast. Now just be aware, what I said, that the plants spread like wildfire. They will volunteer all over your garden. They've done it in mine. I started off by growing several of these back in 2013, and they can volunteer all over your yard. Well, in my case, it's my patio. I don't have a yard, but the seeds will fly and they will land and germinate. They germinate very easily and relatively quickly. So coyote brush is a plant. If you want something easy to grow, it's quite attractive. I mean, it definitely has good garden potential because of its fast growth, its very vivacious look, its very verdant look. Quite a pleasing light green, something you wouldn't expect in a very desolate, dry area. And it can look quite luxuriant in the driest parts of the year, except the driest of the driest years. It might shed some foliage. But now I mentioned the genus Baccharis. There are other species with which coyote brush might be confused. Some more obviously than others. Now the plant I would believe, in my opinion, that would be most commonly confused with coyote brush is broom Baccharis, aka desert broom. It has Baccharis cyrothrioides. It's a very similarly shaped plant, very similarly growing plant, very similarly spreading plant, as it is just like coyote brush. Very opportunistic. It spreads like wildfire. It's also dioecious, male and female plants separate, and can hybridize with coyote brush, making things very confusing. Now in this area there is no broom Baccharis, so I can't worry. I'm not worried about any of these having broom Baccharis DNA. Broom Baccharis is not as common here in Orange County as it is in San Diego County. San Diego County broom Baccharis is quite abundant. And broom Baccharis is very similar. It has a very fine texture. It can get very large or it can be very small. It sprouts everywhere. The seeds blow everywhere. The leaves are a little bit different, especially the lower leaves. Like I was mentioning before, the lower leaves on coyote brush are wider and more tooth-edged. Again, this is a coyote brush leaf from lower on the stem. Tooth-edged, a little bit broader. And that's coyote brush. Broom Baccharis, however, the leaves are usually narrow throughout. Of course, the leaves lower down on the stem are larger than the leaves higher up. So the leaves on broom Baccharis are the same, basically the same shape, but larger lower down on the stems and much smaller higher up. See, just like on coyote brush. But broom Baccharis leaves are usually quite narrow and are generally smooth edged and are sometimes deciduous. Broom Baccharis can go deciduous, and just like coyote brush, also has very similarly structured branches and twigs. So the upper twigs are green on broom Baccharis, allowing broom Baccharis to photosynthesize in the absence of leaves. But the leaves are usually a little bit slightly longer and narrower and mostly smooth edged on broom Baccharis. And again, broom Baccharis also has the same type of bark and the same type of structure. So again, very similar. And then there's another species some people who are not very astute might confuse it with, and that's Baccharis salicina. Used to be known as Baccharis emery, and that's called willow Baccharis. Used to be known as emery Baccharis. And that one, the leaves are generally longer, similarly shaped, but longer than on coyote brush. Longer and a little bit larger than on coyote brush. And I think I've seen that over at Bolsa Chica Ecological Reserve by Huntington Beach. There might be some Baccharis salicina over there. And then there's one with even larger leaves called Baccharis salicifolia, subspecies salicifolia, with which coyote brush should not be confused because the leaves are much larger, and that's mule fat. And those leaves are much larger on mule fat. Try to see if there's any mule fat around here. I've seen some in the area, but you're gonna see coyote brush again. Loves these dry areas in coastal sage scrub, openings in chaparral, disturbed sites, openings in woodlands and forests. So gets to see quite a nice ecological niche. But well, I think that'll pretty much do it for this episode. Coyote brush, quite an abundant plant here in lower elevations, mostly in the coastal foothill sides. Baccharis, pilularis, subspecies consanguinea, and there's the mule fat right here. Mule fat, you can tell, has much larger leaves on it. Rougher, looser texture. Well, that's Baccharis salicifolia, subspecies salicifolia. So that'll do it for my spotlight on shrubs. Thanks for watching, and join me on my next episode. Hopefully very soon. Hopefully this weekend. Probably be up in the mountains this weekend, hopefully.